There's a hard truth that many people rarely dare to say out loud. It's not always strangers who hurt us. Sometimes it's our own children who, whether unintentionally or even deliberately, end up stealing our peace, our dignity, and our freedom in old age. Between 55 and 80, when you should be enjoying your achievements, your calm, and your own projects, a silent fear creeps in. The fear of becoming a burden, of being treated as if you no longer had a voice or a choice, as if you were just a piece of furniture in your own home. My name is Gabriel. I've spent over 15 years studying and practicing Stoicism as a philosophy of life, and I've accompanied hundreds of older people around the world on the path of setting healthy boundaries, living with courage, and finding dignity in the midst of chaos. I've seen too many stories of parents who chose silence, who allowed abuse, for the love of their children, until one day they woke up with an empty heart, wondering at what point they stopped being the owners of their own lives. In this talk, we're going to go through 9 attitudes you should never allow your children to impose on you at this stage of your life. We'll do it through practical philosophy, through the wisdom of Stoicism, and also through the spiritual reminder that every human being is worthy of respect and freedom. I'll speak to you with the closeness of a shared coffee, with the honesty of someone who won't sugarcoat things, and with the hope that these words will help you recover your inner strength. Let's begin. Number 1, letting them decide for you. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're no longer the one making decisions about your own life. Your children, with the best intentions, or at least that's what they say, start choosing for you. The doctor you should see, the treatments that are best for you, even the house you should live in because it's easier for everyone. At first, it might sound like a relief because it takes some weight off your shoulders, but behind that apparent help hides a silent danger. Losing your autonomy, your voice, and your right to decide for yourself. Old age does not erase your ability to discern, much less cancel the value of your experience. I remember when I was studying Epictetus and came across a phrase that stopped me in my tracks. No one can take your will away from you. And I thought about how many times, without realizing it, we hand that will over to others, even to those we love the most. I've met people who told me, my children convinced me to sell my house. They said it was too much work for me. Now I live in an apartment I don't like, and I feel like a guest in my own life. Decisions like that, if you accept them without questioning, can mark a before and after in your dignity. The key is distinguishing between care and control. Someone accompanying you to the doctor is care. Changing your doctor without asking you is control. Suggesting options to improve your life is care. Insisting you move because you can't handle everything anymore is control. And this is where Stoic philosophy offers us the dichotomy of control. What depends on you and what doesn't. Your body may get sick, your strength may weaken, but your right to decide is still yours. How do you defend it without starting family wars? I teach a simple technique, almost like a 3-step mantra. First, you thank them, then you pause, and finally you close with clarity. Something like, "Thanks for caring. I'll think about it. I'll let you know." It's a phrase that cuts through manipulation disguised as help, without sounding aggressive or breaking the bond. Here's a small exercise. Close your eyes and picture the next time someone tries to decide for you. Imagine you're breathing steady, your voice calm, and silently repeat that phrase. "Thanks for caring. I'll think about it. I'll let you know." Now, open your eyes and picture their reaction. Surprise, maybe annoyance, but also respect. That's the seed of your autonomy. And what if they insist, repeat, pressure you? That's when the gentle broken record technique comes in. You calmly repeat the same phrase without justifying or giving long explanations. Because the more you justify, the more ground you give away. Calm firmness is far more powerful than a fight. Don't think that setting boundaries means closing your heart. On the contrary, it creates space for your children to learn to respect you as a complete adult, with your own voice. As the Gospel of Matthew says, "Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no." Matthew 5:37. That's what brings clarity, prevents misunderstandings, and safeguards your dignity. So remember, your children can accompany you, advise you, support you, but decide for you? Never. Because the day you hand over that key, the key to your will, you lose much more than a decision. You lose the root of your freedom. And believe me, it's never too late to take it back. Number 2, letting them use you as an ATM. There's an uncomfortable truth that often gets swept under the rug. Some children see their parents as an endless financial lifeline, and you, with a tender heart, thinking that's what being a mother is for, or that's what being a father is for, end up draining your savings, your pension, and even your dreams to cover needs that aren't always real, but rather the result of poor money management, whims, or irresponsible decisions. The problem isn't helping in a true emergency. The problem is turning your old age into an unlimited checking account. I once met a woman who told me, "Gabriel, I don't regret what I gave them, but it hurts to see what I took away from myself." She showed me how, after paying off her adult children's debts and indulgences, she could no longer afford her own medical treatments. Stories like that are far more common than you think. Where is the justice for yourself in that? Stoicism taught me that virtue lies in balance, and that generosity without prudence turns into poison disguised as kindness. You have the right to help, but you also have the right to say, enough. And to avoid feeling guilty when you do, you need clarity. There's a huge difference between supporting someone in an unexpected crisis, an accident, an illness, a situation no one asked for, and constantly rescuing someone from their own mistakes. Don't confuse love with rescue. True love teaches responsibility. Endless rescue only feeds dependency. Here's a simple, practical rule I suggest you remember. I can help as long as it doesn't dismantle my old age. If giving money means giving up your medicine, your food, or your peace of mind, then it's not help. It's self-abandonment. And there's nothing more unfair than abandoning your own life to carry the weight of someone who should already be carrying their own. One tool I often recommend is what I call an emotional contract. It doesn't need to be a notarized document, just a clear conversation. I'll support you this time, but I want you to know I can't and shouldn't do this always. You are responsible for your life. I am responsible for mine. Saying it calmly but firmly sets a boundary that isn't coldness but respect. And when guilt shows up, because it will, remember this. Helping without destroying yourself is a greater act of love than giving everything without limits. Why? Because you're teaching by example. Your children will see that you can be generous without being irresponsible, and that's far more valuable than a loan with no return date. I like to compare it to the safety instructions on planes. Put your oxygen mask on first before helping others. The first time I heard that, it sounded selfish. But later I realized it's pure wisdom. How can you save anyone if you're running out of air yourself? The same applies here. You can't support anyone if you're sinking with them. So next time you feel pressured to open your wallet, ask yourself, is this an act of love or an act of self-abandonment? The honest answer will give you the compass you need to decide. And if you still hesitate, remember, your old age is not meant to be anyone's bank. It's meant to be lived with dignity, peace, and at last, freedom. Number 3, letting them manipulate you with guilt. There's a silent weapon that children sometimes use without realizing it, and other times with full intent: guilt. If you really loved me, you'd do it. You're the only one who can help me. Don't say I didn't warn you. And little by little, phrase by phrase, they build you an invisible prison. The terrible thing about induced guilt is that it doesn't come from an outside enemy. It comes from the ones you love most, and that makes it twice as hard to face. I've walked alongside people who admitted, "Gabriel, I don't know how many times I said yes with tears in my eyes, just so I wouldn't feel like a bad mother." And they asked me, "Am I failing them if I say no?" The problem is that when guilt becomes your compass, you never walk toward peace, only toward submission. And the worst part is that your children learn the tactic works, and they use it more and more. One of the most practical teachings of Stoicism is that you don't control what others say or do. You control your response. That's where your power lies. It's not about fighting or cutting ties. It's about refusing to play the game. There's a simple technique called the gentle broken record. It means repeating your boundary calmly without giving long explanations. "I understand, but I can't. I know that's how you see it, but I won't. Thanks for telling me. I choose differently. That serene repetition breaks the manipulation pattern because it doesn't enter into debate or blackmail. Another powerful tool is the triple validation. First, acknowledge what they feel. I understand you're upset. Second, validate your own right. But I also need to take care of my peace. And third, close with a clear decision. That's why I won't do it this time. This way, the conversation doesn't feel like a head-on clash, but you also don't give up your ground. Here's a self-reflection exercise for you. Ask yourself, is this guilt I feel real or induced? Real guilt shows up when you truly harm someone. Induced guilt shows up when you choose to take care of yourself and someone doesn't like your decision. One comes from conscience, the other from manipulation. Confusing the two is the trap that steals the most peace in old age. Let me pause here for something special. You listening to me? Tell me in the comments which country you're tuning in from. I love reading where we're all from and how this community keeps growing. And if this reflection resonates with you so far, subscribe and leave a like. That helps me keep sharing these long conversations that feel like a good coffee in the afternoon. I remember reading a line in Proverbs that pierced me. Anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. Proverbs 12:25. How many times a guilt-laden word crushes more than any illness? And how many times a firm but loving word brings relief and peace? You can be that firm voice. So the next time someone tries to wrap you up in words meant to make you feel guilty, take a deep breath, use your short phrases, validate what you feel, and decide without fear. Because borrowed guilt is not yours. Return it calmly and keep your freedom. Number 4, letting them treat you like a child. There's something that can hurt more than a physical wound. Realizing your own children no longer see you as a complete adult, but as someone incapable of standing on your own. It happens to many. They start talking to you in diminutives, explaining basic things as if you hadn't lived 6 or 7 decades, checking your belongings as if you were a teenager who needs supervision. That infantilization is a silent theft of dignity. I remember a 72-year-old man who told me, "My kids say, 'Daddy, don't worry, we'll decide for you.' And while it sounds affectionate, I feel like a child in a room full of adults." His sadness wasn't about the nickname, but about the belief behind the tone, that he was no longer capable. And when that message repeats, day after day, it pierces the self-esteem like an invisible needle. The truth is, age doesn't erase your abilities, though it may reshape them. You may choose to delegate certain things because you don't have the same strength, but you still carry wisdom, judgment, intuition, and the right to decide. And that deserves respect. Stoicism makes it clear, we are not slaves to what others say, but we do have the duty to affirm who we are. If you stay silent, if you accept being infantilized, you become part of the problem. How to respond? I suggest an approach I call the framework of preserved competencies. Make a clear list, even if only in your head, of what you can and choose to handle yourself. Cooking, managing your money, organizing your schedule, making decisions about your health. And also recognize what you prefer to delegate. Maybe online paperwork, lifting heavy objects, or complex legal matters. That way, when someone tries to treat you as if you can't do anything, you can calmly say, "Look, I still take care of this myself, but in this, I do need your help." That clarity cuts through the confusion between care and paternalism. I like to imagine it as a play performed in 2 versions. In the first, your children step on stage and talk to you like a child. They raise their voices, set your schedule, check your phone. The feeling is confinement. In the second version, they talk with respect, ask your opinion, negotiate times. The feeling is shared dignity. Which play would you rather perform? The choice isn't only theirs, it's also yours. A simple tool you can use is to shift the language. If someone tells you, "You can't do this, you're too old," respond, "What I can't allow is for you to decide for me, that I won't accept. What I can do is ask for your help when I need it." That phrase sets things straight without turning it into an argument. And don't forget something essential. Even if you accept help, You never have to accept being stripped of your adulthood. The Bible reminds us in Leviticus 19:32, "Stand up in the presence of the aged. Show respect for the elderly." It doesn't say, "Treat them like children." It says, "Honor their face." That honor is the respect you deserve. If you ever catch yourself swallowing your words just to avoid discomfort, remember this. Every time you claim your right to be treated as an adult, you're teaching your children respect, and your grandchildren too. This isn't only about you, it's about leaving behind a legacy of dignity. And believe me, there is no greater legacy than that. Number 5, letting them turn you into a full-time babysitter. The love for grandchildren is one of life's greatest joys. Those shining eyes, those laughs that seem to wash away any sadness, that little hug that fills you more than any gift ever could. But when caring for your grandchildren becomes a daily burden, a full-time job, an obligation that drains your energy, your health, and your personal space, it stops being a gift and turns into an unfair weight. I've heard many grandmothers say, "I watch them because I love them, but I don't have the strength anymore." They say it with a sigh, caught between affection and exhaustion. Behind those words lies a hard reality. Sometimes children unload the responsibility of raising onto their parents again, as if your stage of rest and freedom were a luxury you could postpone. But the truth is, you already fulfilled that mission. You raised, you taught, you sacrificed. This stage is not about raising again, it's about caring for yourself, about enjoying the harvest of what you've sown. Stoicism taught me that everything has its time and place. And I also find that wisdom in the Bible, in Ecclesiastes 3:1, "To everything there is a season, and a time for every purpose under heaven." Yes, there is a time to care, but there is also a time to rest and live in peace. If you confuse those times, you end up losing yourself. How do you set limits without breaking the bond? Start with a clear plan. Define which days and how many hours you can care for your grandchildren without compromising your health or your life. For example, 1 afternoon a week or 2 specific mornings. And communicate it with love, but with firmness. I can care for my grandchildren on this day, at this time, but I need the rest of the time for myself. That boundary is not selfishness, it's respect. I like to share a parable I once heard in a rural community. An old fisherman always took his grandchildren to the river, but he never handed them the fish already caught. He taught them to cast the net, to wait, to be patient. One day they asked why he didn't just make life easier for them, and he replied, "Because when I'm gone, they'll need to fish on their own." It's the same with children. Helping occasionally strengthens them, but carrying everything weakens them. Also think of the invisible cost of too much caregiving. Fewer hours of sleep, less time for your medical appointments, less energy for your own projects. All of that takes its toll. And if you break inside, what good is it that your arms are available for your grandchildren if your soul is exhausted? Care is only true when it's sustainable. So the next time someone wants to leave the grandchildren with you every day, don't take it as proof of love. Take it as a sign that you need to speak up. Remember, caring for your grandchildren can be a gift, but it should never become an obligation that erases your freedom. True love also includes the right to say no, and by doing so, you're not rejecting your grandchildren. You're honoring your life and teaching them by example that love does not mean sacrificing yourself until you disappear. Number 6, letting them invade your home and your privacy. Your home should be your refuge, that sacred space where you breathe in peace, where every object holds your story, and every corner reflects your identity. But too often, adult children enter that space as if it were an extension of theirs. They show up without notice, leave boxes of their belongings, lend your keys to others, move in partners or friends, just for a few days that turn into months. Some even want your passwords, just in case. And little by little, your own home becomes an occupied territory. I've heard people say, "Gabriel, my house looks like my kid's storage unit. I've got hallways full of boxes that aren't even mine." And the worst part isn't the boxes. It's the feeling that you're no longer the owner of your own space. Stoicism teaches that external order reflects internal order. When your house is invaded, your mind gets unsettled too. That's why reclaiming your space is more than aesthetics, it's emotional health. It's not about fighting, but about setting clear agreements. Something I often recommend is creating a home agreement. It doesn't need to be a rigid contract, just simple rules. The keys are yours, and you decide who gets them. Visits should be announced. Other people's belongings aren't stored without your permission, and house guests have a defined time frame. Saying it out loud changes the dynamic. If you keep silent, the invasion becomes normal. I once heard a very vivid comparison. A woman said her house was like a garden. She told me, if I don't put up a fence, my flowers get trampled. Your walls are that fence. It's not about shutting people out. It's about teaching respect. When your children see that your home has rules, they'll understand that your life also has boundaries that must be respected. And don't forget the digital side. Today, many children believe they're entitled to your passwords, to check your phone, to manage your social media, to help you. If you accept that without thinking, you lose privacy in the one space where you're still completely yourself. If you want support, that's fine, but it should be on your terms. You help me when I ask, not when you decide. Here's a practical exercise. Walk through your home and name each space out loud. This is my bedroom. I decide here. This is my kitchen. I set the rules here. It may sound odd, but naming the space reinforces your right over it. And when someone tries to cross that line, you'll have more inner strength to defend it. So never forget, your home is not a warehouse, not a hotel, not a common area. Your home is yours. Take back your keys, your schedule, your peace. Because if you lose your refuge, you lose your most intimate place in the world. And that, believe me, is non-negotiable. Number 7. Letting them drag you into their conflicts. There's something more exhausting than your own argument, being trapped in someone else's. Many adult children think it's fine to use their parents as referees, messengers, or judges in their fights with siblings, partners, or even in-laws. Suddenly, you're getting phone calls filled with lines like, "Mom, tell my brother he owes me money," or "Dad, can you convince your daughter-in-law to treat me better?" And without realizing it, you're stuck in trenches that aren't yours, with a divided heart and shattered peace. I remember a 70-year-old woman who told me, "Gabriel, my kids call me to choose sides, and I don't want to choose. I feel like if I support one, I'm betraying the other." That's the trap of triangulation. They place you in the middle of a war that isn't yours and that you'll never win. The outcome is always the same. You end up drained, guilty, and with damaged relationships on both sides. Here, Stoicism offers a clear way out. Recognize what's yours and what isn't. The fights of your adult children are not yours. You can listen with affection, but you don't resolve them. It's like being handed a torch on fire. If you take it, you get burned. If you leave it, it burns out on its own, or the one who lit it will have to handle it. So how do you step out without breaking the relationship? I often recommend a simple but powerful method. Listen briefly, redirect, and close. Listen respectfully without long judgments. Then redirect. This is something you need to talk about directly with your brother. And close with a clear phrase, "I'm not going to intervene." Repeating that pattern calmly teaches them that you're not a battlefield. A very useful visual tool is Cartman's drama triangle, which shows how you get trapped as rescuer, victim, or persecutor. If you step in, you'll end up in one of those roles. But if you step out, you recover your place of serenity. Picture it like a stage play. They're on stage arguing, and you take a step back into the audience. From there, you observe, but you don't act, and your peace remains intact. Even the Bible reminds us of the danger of meddling in other people's disputes. Proverbs 26:17 says, "Whoever meddles in a quarrel not his own is like one who takes a dog by the ears." A vivid and even comical image. Grab a dog by the ears, and all you'll get is bitten. The same thing happens when you jump into fights that aren't yours. So the next time one of your children tries to pull you into choosing sides, breathe and remember, you are not a judge, not a messenger, not a referee. You are a parent, and your role is not to divide, but to guard the peace in your heart. Believe me, there's no greater gift than teaching your children that their conflicts belong to them, and that you will not sacrifice your tranquility for battles you never started. Number 8. letting them hold back your projects and your social life. One of the most common mistakes adult children make is thinking that once you reach a certain age, your only mission is to stay home, waiting for calls, visits, or favors. Then come the phrases, "At your age, you're going to start studying? Do you really plan to travel alone? That's dangerous. Better stay safe at home." With words that sound like care, what they really do is clip your wings and try to park your life in the name of prudence. I remember a 65-year-old man who told me, "Gabriel, I always wanted to learn guitar, and when I mentioned it to my family, they laughed. You're too old for that." You know what I did? I signed up anyway. Now I play in a small group, and I feel like my life got 10 years younger. That story confirms something for me. What gives you life is not your age. It's the projects you embrace. Stoicism teaches us that what truly matters is not how much time we have left, but what we do with that time. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste much of it. If each day is spent on what others want, but never on what you dream of, then it's not age that limits you. It's the invisible chains of other people's opinions. You have the right to keep dreaming, to have projects, to fall in love, to travel, to dance, to learn. And a social life is part of that, not just because it brings joy, but because it also protects your mind, your memory, and your spirit. Forced loneliness, disguised as safety, is a slow poison. A tool I recommend is what I call anchor projects. Choose 3. 1 for learning, a course, an instrument, a language. 1 for service, helping in a community, volunteering, supporting others. And 1 for enjoyment, dancing, traveling, painting, anything purely for pleasure. These 3 projects become your pillars, and when someone tries to hold you back, you can say, "This is my purpose now, and I respect it as much as I respect your decisions." Sometimes it helps to respond with a Socratic dialogue, that is, with questions that unravel the other person's fear. If someone says, "That's dangerous," ask them, "What's more dangerous? Trying something new, or resigning myself to die while still alive?" That question isn't meant to start a fight, but to spark reflection. And if you still doubt, think of historical examples. At 76, Miguel de Cervantes published the second part of Don Quixote. Age wasn't an obstacle, it was his drive. History is full of people who bloomed late. Why not you? So next time your children try to hold you back, smile and remember, you are not meant to live according to their fears. Your life is still yours, and your projects, no matter how small they seem, are the spark that keeps your dignity burning. And that spark, as long as you breathe, must never go out. Number 9, letting them disrespect you or raise their voice. There's something you should never normalize, not from your children and not from anyone: disrespect. It can show up as shouting, cruel sarcasm, hurtful words, or gestures that make you feel small. Many people have told me, "Gabriel, my kids don't hit me, but they yell at me as if I were a disobedient child." And believe me, those shouts wound more deeply than any blow because they go straight to your dignity. Respect is not a luxury. It's the basic foundation of any healthy relationship. And when it's lost, it's your duty to remind them. I'm not talking about responding with violence, but about drawing a clear, calm boundary. The technique I teach is simple. Pause, name the behavior, ask for change, and set the consequence. You raised your voice. I'm not going to keep talking until you speak to me with respect. If you don't, I'll step away from the conversation. That kind of clarity, delivered calmly, is stronger than any long sermon. This echoes something I read in Matthew 5:37. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. When your words are clear, you don't need to shout or over-explain. Your boundary is in your tone, in your consistency. If you say, "I don't accept shouting," and you stay silent or walk away when it happens, your children will learn that your respect is not negotiable. I remember a man who told me how his life changed when he applied this rule. His son used to yell at him every time they argued about money. One day, instead of getting angry, he stood up and calmly said, "When you want to talk to me with respect, I'll be here." and then he went for a walk. His son got even angrier at first, but over time he understood he had lost a privilege, his father's attention when he shouted. That taught him more than any lecture could. And don't forget, respect goes both ways. If you also fall into shouting or hurtful words, it's only fair to acknowledge it and apologize. That doesn't make you weak. On the contrary, it gives you the moral authority to demand the same. Respect isn't a weapon. It's a mutual agreement that sustains love. I encourage you to practice short boundary phrases out loud, so they come naturally when the time comes. I don't accept shouting. Let's talk when you're calm. Don't disrespect me. Say them in front of the mirror until your body feels them as natural. So remember, love does not justify disrespect. Your children may be upset, they may disagree, but they never have the right to treat you with verbal or emotional violence. Your voice deserves calm. Your life deserves dignity. Because if you don't draw that line, no one will do it for you. And your peace, believe me, is priceless. We've walked together through a subject that hurts, but also frees. 9 attitudes you should never allow from your children in your later years, not only because they threaten your dignity, but because they rob you of peace, freedom, and purpose. We talked about not letting them decide for you, not becoming their ATM, not giving in to guilt. We also saw the importance of not accepting being treated like a child, of caring for your grandchildren with love, but without losing yourself in it, of protecting your home and your privacy, of staying out of their conflicts, of defending your projects, and above all, of never tolerating disrespect. If anything is clear, it's this. Setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, but of self-respect. And when you respect yourself, you teach others, including your children, how to respect you. Yes, saying no hurts. But living without a voice in your own life hurts far more. Stoicism has taught me that true freedom is not doing whatever you want, but not letting others decide for you what you don't want. And that lesson matters more than ever in maturity. I want to thank you from the heart for staying with me until the end, for giving me your time and attention in this conversation. This channel, the Stoic Garden, exists to walk with you on the path of reclaiming dignity, serenity, and inner strength. I'm Gabriel, and my mission is to remind you that it's never too late to start again, that life still has meaning, and that your peace is not up for negotiation. I invite you to write in the comments where you're watching from, because I love seeing how this community of wisdom seekers is spreading all over the world. And also leave a phrase that seals what we've learned today. Write, "My respect is not negotiable." That will be our shared banner. Share this message with a sister, a friend, or someone close who might need it. You never know when a few words might be the breath of air someone needs to live again. Thank you once again for being here. On screen, you'll see 2 more videos waiting for you. Choose one and keep learning how to bring this practical and spiritual philosophy into your life in a simple yet profound way. Because this journey doesn't end here. It's only just beginning.